Good morning, everyone. Welcome, all of you. My name is Mahmoud Azaz, and I am the director for the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. This is a virtual workshop entitled Teaching Less Commonly Taught Languages at Hispanic Serving Institutions, and this is our third panel on the topic. And the title for this panel is Less Commonly Taught Languages, Student Retention Strategies. The event is organized as a joint effort by 4 Title VI centers at the University of Arizona: Center for East Asian Studies, Center for Latin American Studies, Center for Middle East Studies, and Center for Educational Resources in Culture, Language, and Literacy. Before I get to introduce the speakers in the respective sequence, I'd like also to acknowledge the fact that we are a Hispanic serving institution. Kate, can you go to the next slide? As you all know, being a Hispanic serving institution means we are focusing on a good number of efforts, initiatives, and programs that sustain the teaching and learning of these foreign languages. Today we are focusing on the student retention strategies, and we will have 4 presentations, including one by myself. And the first speaker is Dr. Dianna Murphy from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The title of her talk is Empirical Research on the Reasons the U.S. Undergraduates Do and Don't Enroll in Language Courses. Now I will take the pleasure of introducing Dr. Dianna Murphy. Dr. Dianna Murphy has a PhD in Slavic linguistics. She is now the director of the Language Institute at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she also co-directs the Russian Flagship program. Dr. Murphy's recent research explores undergraduate student perspectives on college language instruction, the proficiency outcomes of the less commonly taught language programs, and the languages not represented by student learning doctoral degrees in languages, literatures, and linguistics in the United States. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dianna Murphy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. It is a joy to be in conversation with you today. I'm going to share my screen and go into presenter view. Right, so I'm going to share some empirical research on the reasons that students do and don't enroll in language courses. So this is going to be a pretty data-heavy presentation, but I'm going to end with examples of some follow-up strategies that at the University of Wisconsin-Madison we've tried in response, in part in response to some of the findings from the research that we conducted at my university. So welcome, glad to have you here. So the study that I'll be sharing with you today was conducted at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is the flagship public university in the state of Wisconsin. We enroll this semester a little over 34,000 students, undergraduate students, over 48,000 students when you include graduate and professional students. And we have the capacity at the university to teach about 60 languages during the academic year and summer. And this tall building that you see in the picture is 𝘎𝘓𝑛𝑻 Hall, where all departments of languages, literatures, and cultures are housed on our campus. That's our Tower of Babel. So the study that I'm going to be sharing with you today was motivated by a desire on my part as director of the Language Institute at UW-Madison and on the part of other colleagues to better understand why our students are choosing to take language courses. And we were really motivated to pursue this line of research because we were interested in understanding why students also were not choosing to take a language. And we wanted to explore, too, from a student perspective, what factors or conditions might make our undergraduate students more likely to take language courses with us in the future. The study that I'll be sharing with you is a survey-based study, and it was a census survey. So we surveyed the full UW-Madison undergraduate population. We administered an online questionnaire, and the data was collected in 2019, right before the pandemic. So a big caveat that some of the findings were pre-pandemic context, and I'm curious to maybe in the future administer the survey again and see what may have changed. The instrument that we used, an online questionnaire, was developed locally with the expert guidance of our colleagues in the University of Wisconsin Survey Center, and with input from faculty, graduate students, and students from UW-Madison departments of programs in which languages are taught, with some additional input from colleagues at Michigan State University who conducted a partial replication study of the study that I'll mention later on at their university. The questionnaire is 35 items long. It includes items that ask students to reflect on the importance to them of proficiency in languages other than English from 3 different perspectives: in terms of their personal interests, in terms of their academic majors, and in terms of their career plans. We have items asking students about which languages they did or didn't study, and well, not what they didn't study, what languages they did study in college, the reasons for studying languages, the reasons for discontinuing language study, and the reasons for continuing, the reasons for not enrolling in language courses, and then also items that asked about their likelihood of enrolling in a language course in the future if certain conditions applied. We have a number of demographic questions as well, and also for those students studying languages, we ask them which languages, to what level. And in a breakout room, I will be, if any of you are interested in administering this questionnaire to students on your campus, taking some time to walk you through the questionnaire and can share with you contact information for a colleague who can share the actual Qualtrics questionnaire with you if you're interested in doing that. So participants in the study were 3,298 undergraduate students at UW-Madison. It so happened that exactly half of our sample, 1,650 students, never enrolled in a language course, a language other than English course at UW-Madison. And the other half had enrolled in a course either currently the semester in which the survey was administered, or had enrolled in a language course in the past. There were 42 languages represented in our sample, and our response rate, the online questionnaire, was 10.9%. The demographic profiles of the participants in the study largely matched the overall population of undergraduate students at UW-Madison. And we asked 3 research questions. The first was, how highly do students value proficiency in languages other than English? Because we wanted to know, students may be taking language courses because to fulfill a requirement, but we wanted to sort of take a step back to ask students just to reflect on, are language abilities important to you? And then we asked about reasons that students have for enrolling or not enrolling in our courses. And then again, what would make them more likely to enroll in language courses in the future? I won't get into right now the analysis, but I'd be happy to talk through that with you. We use both descriptive and inferential statistics, and for open-ended questions, did an analysis for themes. So I'm just going to get right into the findings. So in terms of the first research question, how highly do undergraduate students value proficiency in languages other than English? This table here shows you from the 3 domains what the mean was on a scale from 1 to 5. So a mean of 3.51 is in between somewhat important, you can see down here, to very important to students overall in terms of their personal interests. This was very encouraging to us. In terms of their career plans, though, the mean was lower, just right about at somewhat important. And then in terms of their current major, their intended major, even lower than that. In between a little important towards somewhat important, with a mean of 2.74. This shows you the frequency distribution of the response options. And let's see, I needed to write this down. 81% of the students, this is represented by the lightest coding here, in terms of their personal interests, a full 81% of students indicated that proficiency in languages other than English was somewhat, very, or extremely important to them. 63.5% indicated the same in terms of their career plans, and 52.5% indicated that proficiency in LOTS was somewhat, very, or extremely important to them. This is a lot of data, but what I'd like to draw your attention to in this table is that, look here, That even students minus float refers to those students in our study who had never taken a language course with us. Even for those students, I mean, if of over 3.18, which is again over a little bit over somewhat important, said that language proficiency was important to them. Of course, it was higher for students who are currently enrolled in a language course. 4.00 is the mean here, very important, and a little less important to students who had taken a language course in the past, which makes sense. But what I want to draw your attention to is that our students were telling us that by and large, languages were important to them, even if they had never taken a language course with us. Okay, this is even more data-y, but I'd like to draw to your attention here. We did a regression analysis to look at what variables might be predictive of the value that students put on proficiency in languages other than English. And we found that women more highly valued language proficiency than men. Students who identified as Hispanic more highly valued proficiency in languages other than English than non-Hispanic. Students who identified as white did non-white students more highly valued proficiency in languages other than English than did white students. And intention to study abroad was also significant on the number of languages studied. So now we'll get to findings related to the reasons that our students told us that they are taking courses in languages other than English with us at the college level. And so the top reasons here, the top 4 reasons, have to do with students' personal what some of the literature calls, intrinsic motivation, the enjoyment, their personal interest. So enjoy learning languages in general, interested in the cultures in which the languages they're studying were spoken, that it contributes to their personal growth and development, and of course that they are interested maybe in traveling to a country or place in which the language is spoken. I'll draw your attention to the item that's highlighted a little bit lower down, where they said, ranked a bit lower, that the languages they're studying would be useful or necessary for their career. So the career connection was lower, and I'll come back to that later. The main reasons that students do not enroll in language courses, the very top, is that they're not required. If they're not required, they, and I'll share some findings, they just don't feel that they can fit into their schedule, which is related to the second reason. They don't fit into their schedule. And I'd like to share some qualitative data then related to that finding, that we have a student here in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences who told us that it's a luxury to take a language course. A student in LNS who said, well, the courses are 5 credits. I'm not majoring in a language. I really need to fill my requirements. I would have loved to have taken Chinese language. I took Chinese in high school. I went to China, but I need to focus on my major requirements. And I didn't in this presentation do really a literature review, but there's a fascinating study by colleagues at the University of Arizona, 𝘎𝘩 and Liu, who followed students of Chinese from high school to college and found that some of the institutional discourse around major requirements and what they should be focusing on discouraged those students from continuing with their Chinese study. The reasons for not studying a language, some of the barriers to access had to do about scheduling, conflicts with other classes, and also the way that our classes are scheduled in terms of so many class meetings. This one student said, I felt like I was in high school again. I started to resent the class. It meets every day. Okay, so what would make students more likely to enroll in language courses with us in the future? The data that I'm going to share with you here, again, here's a ton of data all in one table here, includes both those students, and this is in the left-hand column, the minus float who had never taken a language course with us, as well as the students who are plus float, either currently or in the past, to taken a language course. And you can see that, well, I'm going to go to the next slide and kind of draw your attention to a few different responses here. So we just looked at the reasons students told us that they weren't enrolling in language courses had to do with, focusing on their major requirements on their schedule. when students told us what would make them more likely to take a language course in the future, you can see that those responses about like, well, if they're a major in the language, I'd be more likely to take it, was a bit lower, a bit higher for students enrolled in language courses now. Courses that worked better with my schedule, 57%, 57.6% of students who had never studied a language before said they would be more likely. And then kind of down at the bottom in terms of all of these different factors or considerations are online language courses and language courses being offered partially online. Again, this is pre-pandemic, so I don't know if the responses to this would be a bit different today. Students did, though, suggest what would so some of the items were free response, and these are for students sharing their thoughts related to specifically to scheduling, that classes that were not every day, maybe an online class would be beneficial. And also that, okay, if I had a certificate or something to show for my language study, then it would count. And we saw this in the qualitative data just all over the place, that in the second quote here, student of engineering, the courses would be so much better if I could use them for something useful, such as a certificate. So the language study in and of itself for some students didn't seem to be as valuable if there wasn't some kind of credential associated with it. Okay, so now I'd like to go to, this is the same table that I just showed you, considerations that would make students more likely to undertake or to continue language study, to show you what were the most highly ranked responses. And number one for students in language courses, and number two for those students who had never studied a language, was they would be more likely to start taking a language or to continue studying a language if employers conveyed that they valued those skills. That was number one and number two. And then I've also highlighted here, if I saw more direct links between language study and my career plans. So two of the three most highly ranked responses had to do with students' future careers. Other highly ranked responses here had to do with also kind of with finances. If I received a scholarship, and then things that have to do more with their language use opportunities, if there are opportunities for use the language outside of class, if I could study abroad. And then also, if I saw more links between my language study and my major, if I saw more direct links going down here with my language study and my personal interests. There were opportunities to connect with communities in which the language was spoken. So now I'm going to move, that was a pretty quick overview of some of the key findings from this study. Now I'm going to share with you some of the initiatives at the University of Wisconsin-Madison that we've engaged with in different units on our campus related to languages and careers specifically. So recalling that the two items that were at the very top of the list for, what would make you more likely to study a language if employers conveyed that they valued it, and if I saw a link between language study and my career goals. And so the screenshot that I'm sharing with you here is from a website that my home department, the Language Institute, maintains, called UW-Madison Languages, that it's kind of a portal for all of our language programs and courses at the university. And among the resources for students on this website is a language career guide, language careers guide, forgive me, that my colleague Lydia Odegaard in the Language Institute just recently launched. And so these are screenshots. I'd be happy to show you, walk you through the actual website if there's time or interest, but you can see the link here, languages.wisc.edu, and then languages, language career guide. So I'll show you just a couple of other screenshots from that careers guide. There's information about the value that employers place on language abilities, at a state level. In Wisconsin, we engaged with in a language roadmap initiative that I co-directed with a number of colleagues that looked at employer demand for languages. And so we refer students to some of those voices, to the ACTFL Making Languages Our Business report, to the NACE job outlook that shows which skills employers are looking for in a resume and tries to connect language study with those transferable skills that students develop through their language study. And then there's a part in this careers guide that's divided up by industry or sort of career domain. And so there are sections here: government law and international affairs, education and nonprofit, business and service, communications and technology, healthcare and scientific research. So trying to create resources that are specific to students going into different career paths. And for each of these career, like big picture career areas, I'm going to pretend that I'm clicking here on government law and international affairs. There are profiles of alumni who are working in those areas. And I don't have a screenshot here, but if you click on each one of these, there's a profile of each individual alum in which they're talking about, or they share what they did when as an undergraduate student, how they're using the language in their professional life, or how their language and culture learning led or influenced their career trajectory. And then this says, imagine you're going down within that, let me see, what was it called? Government law and international affairs. There are numerous then sort of subfields within that larger one. And so here, this is just one example. Okay, you're going into you're interested in foreign service and diplomacy, and there are resources that are specific to those career areas with some specific forms of support or advising in that area. And things like, okay, so if you're interested in this field, you might be interested in applying for a Boren scholarship, for example, which is for students who are interested in federal service. And then my colleague Lydia Odegaard, again through the Language Institute, is teaching a one-credit course. The course is being taught starting this fall through international studies. We had initially offered it through one of our language departments, decided to move the course to international studies in hopes of appealing to a broader range of students. And the course is to give students the opportunity to reflect, to give them some tools for reflecting on their language and culture learning in whatever form that took, their multilingual abilities, and to learn how to articulate those experiences and those skills to potential employers. Lydia organizes networking sessions with alumni, helps them with their resume, cover letter, preparing for interviews. So giving students some of the meta language and really space for reflection on their language and culture, intercultural abilities, so that they can better themselves share with prospective employers what it is that they can bring to a position. Oops, let me go next. And then also, this is a screenshot of a 2-page handout that was developed in the College of Letters and Science at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. SuccessWorks is the name of the unit. It's our career preparation and career advising unit in the college. And for every major, including for majors in languages, literatures, and cultures, there's what they're calling a skills sheet that shares with students what the major skills are that you'll develop as a student in this major. And so this is an example of the skills sheet for Asian languages and cultures. And so shows students that you're not only, if you will, developing language proficiency. Of course, you are written and spoken language proficiency, but also these transferable skills, teamwork, creative thinking, cultural competence, critical thinking, analytical thinking, research. Give students ideas for ways that they can supplement the skills that they're developing through their major, access to career preparation resources. And this is then the second page of that handout, putting your Asian languages and cultures major to work. That then has information about alumni who majored in Asian languages and cultures, has a list of the employers, the places where those students are working, what types of industries they're working in, where they're working, has a couple of alumni profiles. And so again, this was prepared by our colleagues in SuccessWorks, but working closely with colleagues in the department. And then I wanted to share with you an event that is organized by my amazing colleagues with the Wisconsin Intensive Summer Language Institutes, or WISLE, at UW-Madison, which offers over 30 less commonly taught languages in our intensive summer session. And every year over the summer, they host a virtual 𝘲𝘪𝘙𝘊𝘐𝘓 career fair. And this is open to anyone. It was developed initially for students in the WISLE programs, but it's open to all 𝘲𝘪𝘙 students. The virtual portions are, and includes presentations by different employers from the federal government, from the private sector, talking with students, specifically with 𝘲𝘪𝘙 students, about potential career pathways, and includes some alumni networking as well, and archives some of the workshop presentations and workshops as well. And so if you go to 𝘲𝘪𝑐areers.wisc.edu, you can see what's archived there, and maybe some resources that would be useful for you and your students. So this is right, the Wisconsin Intensive Summer Language Institute, WISLE. I wanted to share that with you. Okay, and now I wanted to end my presentation by sharing with you a little from a partial replication study that was done at Michigan State University. And so colleagues with the Center for Language Teaching Advancement, or CELTA, at Michigan State University did a partial replication of the survey that we did at UW-Madison at MSU. And so took the questionnaire, modified it for an MSU context by changing, the languages that are taught for students to select from, the schools and colleges, but everything else is pretty much the same. Administered that questionnaire to their students. And a couple of weeks ago, an article on that study was published in Foreign Language Annals. An early release is available here. They found that the findings were very similar. Michigan State University is also a public university in the Midwest, and the findings were quite similar. They did some more qualitative analysis, looking at some ideas that students have for sort of like alternatives to language, to credit-bearing language studies. So if you're interested in those findings, I'd refer you to that article. And made several recommendations based on the findings of that study on their campus. So just the importance of investing in understanding the needs of the students on your campus. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, but we have a diverse student population, right? We have, as I started by saying, at UW-Madison, over 30,000 students. So of course, understanding who those students are is a big task. But that in understanding the needs of our student body, we can take steps then to counter the monolingual mindset in which white students, and MSU also found that non-white students valued language, proficiency in languages other than English, than white students. So to counter this monolingual English mindset to which some white students seem to be more prone. And then One of Kuhn et al.'s recommendations is we clearly show students how language study can be relevant for, strengthen their areas of study. So they focused a little bit more on the academic studies. At UW-Madison, we focused a little bit more on the link with languages and careers. And they're advocating for providing some more flexibility from a curricular programmatic design for students by maybe offering hybrid courses, maybe offering lower credit courses that would more easily fit into a student's schedule. The original survey instrument is published in this article in Second Language Research and Practice, and the main quantitative findings that I shared with you today are from this article. 𝘠𝘬𝘓𝑚 and 𝘠𝘓 𝘠𝘓𝑚 were my colleagues on this study, and 𝘠𝘬 and 𝘠𝘓 conducted the quantitative analysis. And then the qualitative findings from the study at UW-Madison that I shared are in this wonderful volume that I really would highly recommend to you on language program vitality in the United States, from surviving to thriving in higher education, edited by Emily Heidrich-Jubel, Felix Cronenberg, and Scott Sterling, and is available as a full PDF, I think maybe even open access. I'm not quite sure about that. But there are numerous chapters in this volume that also include student voices and also include examples from many different institutions on strategies for addressing declining enrollments in languages and in LCTLs in particular. I'll share with you the references here of the two studies from UW-Madison, or the two articles that came out of the UW-Madison study, and again of the Michigan State University study, which is in Foreign Language Annals. And then we'll just conclude by saying that if you're interested in administering this questionnaire on your campus during the breakout, I'll walk whoever's interested through the questionnaire and show you how it's organized. And then Emily Heidrich-Jubel at Michigan State University can share the Qualtrics file with you. So Qualtrics is the survey software that MSU used to conduct their survey. And so rather than, if you're interested in doing the survey, rather than creating it in Qualtrics from scratch, and there are all these different branching items, you can just use the version in Qualtrics that our colleagues at MSU created.
So the second presentation on this panel is by myself. My name is Mahmoud Azaz, and I am a professor of Arabic language and linguistics. And I'm also the director for the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. My expertise in applied linguistics of Arabic, focusing on the acquisition or learning of Arabic as a second language from linguistic and sociocultural perspectives. Perhaps I'm going to take quite a different turn here. We got a good number of insights from different presentations about the reasons for the low enrollment. Perhaps I will focus on what could be done, presenting a course that I developed here in the Arabic BA, anchoring on the concept of language variation and integrating the Arabic dialects as assets. How can we change the rhetoric around Arabic dialects, sometimes as problems, sometimes as challenges, into assets, into the Arabic language program, and in particular in this course. Before I do this, I would just give some background about Arabic language variation in general, and perhaps in applied linguistics as well. And as I mentioned, my approach to this is the so what question. I mean, we have been talking about so many initiatives. Wonderful colleagues have been done so wonderful things. And I have been always thinking in the direction about what could be done. What could be done in realistic terms, in concrete terms, that can really help us to grow numbers and also retain students at the upper division courses. I will talk about the course in some details, hopefully in the next 20 minutes or so. And then I will highlight also some of the lessons that I have learned in that process. So I think all of you now understand and also appreciate the value of language variation in applied linguistics and how it's an interesting window into understanding language as a social phenomenon. But as you know, when we talk about language variation, mostly we are introducing these courses to students in sociolinguistics courses in English for the most part, right? And not in the target language. So how would you use language variation about Arabic and to teach it in Arabic? That's the main concept that I use. Of course, so many colleagues talked about the value of this because it's one way to critique the monolingual bias and the single focus on the standard varieties. In the context of Arabic, standard here is modern standard Arabic, how we should really integrate the other dialects that are spoken and really communicative also in the sociolinguistic landscape of Arabic. So that's another motive for focusing on language variation in that course. A third is perhaps variation that arises from differences in regional varieties of a language, in our case is Arabic, is also an interesting window into bringing the culture of these native dialects. And by culture here, I mean the culture where that particular variety or varieties are spoken. I think we all agree here that through these dialects, we can also enhance our students' cultural training and knowledge about these dialects as well. A last motive for this is to advocate for an approach that builds on the multiple competencies of multilingual learners in the language classroom. So instead of looking at those who speak a variety of Arabic as a challenge or as a problem, I'm anchoring on these as strategic assets, how we can convert or change the discourse about these dialects and perhaps languages into assets in the context of a higher division language course. A little bit about Arabic. I think I saw a couple of colleagues on the screen who teach Arabic, familiar with the Arabic sociolinguistic landscape. Arabic is kind of a unique language because it's a diglossic language, which means we have two varieties existing side by side, broadly defined. We have Standard Arabic, or sometimes we abbreviate this as MSA, Modern Standard Arabic. And also we have the Arabic dialects. Different theoretical frameworks have been developed over time to capture this phenomenon, including, as we all know, Ferguson and then Badawi and so many other models that try to capture the sociolinguistic landscape of Arabic. For some reason, the concepts of high versus low, the high variety and the low variety, brings in some stereotypes about the low prestige that's really assigned to Arabic dialects. But on the representation here that I find as kind of interesting, although Arabic dialects are low, you find them actually under the tree. These are the roots of that tree. You cannot really understand the Arabic culture without understanding the dialects. You cannot understand the social practices without understanding the dialects. So although the word low in Ferguson's model had these bad connotations, I take low here to mean the core of the Arabic language. Also, as you all know, research in Arabic linguistics and Arabic dialectology over the past 50 years or so has documented a good number of features in which these dialects continue to exist as subsystems of Arabic. And you find these at all the linguistic levels, if these are lexical, semantic, pragmatic, and phonological. Also, I think there is a growing number of research now showing that there is also regional variation in Standard Arabic. There is also some unique features that are assigned to different varieties of MSA or Modern Standard Arabic that are spoken in the Arab countries. I have published at least one paper on this in collaboration with a grad student, but this could be a different topic a bit from this. So the curricular question that I have been interested in is, what can we do to bring in this sociolinguistic variation in Arabic in upper division courses? And I think those who do Arabic in the audience agree with me now that our upper division language courses in any Arabic language program is basically a combination of second/foreign, heritage, and sometimes native speakers. And I will touch upon the native speakers component of this in the context of this course. For strategic reasons, logistics, resources, programs in Arabic find it hard to develop or to establish a separate program for heritage, and more or less we integrate them into the mainstream language courses. And that's where this course is situated. Also, I take a course like this to help us to overcome the curricular divide in the context of Arabic. By curricular divide is basically this established notion in foreign language programs that in first year and second year, we focus mostly on grammar and pragmatics. Starting by third year and beyond, we try to focus on content. But in the context of this course, this curricular divide in Arabic is critiqued from a little bit of a different perspective. In the context of Arabic, we are assuming that once students make it to the third year and fourth year, we focus only on the high variety. We get students to study Arabic for the media, study Arabic for analyzing a classical text, studying Arabic for diplomacy and international relations. And for the most part, this is conducted in Standard Arabic. I'm critiquing the perspective in the context of this course that perhaps Arabic dialects have a strategic position that should surface in these upper division courses. And this is quite not consistent with this curricular divide in the established literature. So the course is named 𝘛𝘦𝘢𝘪𝘯𝘨 اللغوي في اللغة العربية, or a variation in the Arabic language, linguistic analysis, identities and ideologies, in Arabic as a multi-dialectal language. And I approach variation from three different perspectives, and I will elaborate on each one in a minute. The first one is the linguistic dimension to variation. The second is the socio-linguistic dimension of variation. And the third is the discourse dimension of variation. Keep in mind that the course is in Arabic about Arabic. So that's just a key notion to the course. And as we all know, making students or asking students to study about the language in the language is a rigorous pedagogical approach that enhances students' meta-linguistic knowledge and awareness about that language. What do students do in each of these three perspectives? In the linguistic perspective, students focus on the features of Standard Arabic and the dialects, with focus on the regional complexities. And here we go systematically and I offer them a good number of modules that talk about the phonology of Standard Arabic and Arabic dialects, the lexical items in Arabic dialects and in Standard Arabic. And also we talk about some of the morphosyntactic features that are quite unique in Arabic dialects that compare and contrast to Standard Arabic. I think those who teach Arabic understand it to some degree that we have a good number of features. One of them is basically if you are forming a question in Egyptian, you would say بتعمل إيه, like you do what? The question word is at the end. But to form this in Eastern Arabic, you see ماذا تفعل, you take the question word at the beginning of the question. So if you look at the distance or the proximity between or among Standard Arabic and the Arabic dialects, we have a good number of features that have been documented in the literature. Students study about these linguistic features in Arabic, about Standard Arabic and about Egyptian and Levantine Arabic. I focus on these two dialects in the context of this course, but open the space for students to bring in their knowledge about any other variety or dialect that they are familiar with. The second perspective, also modules, under the sociolinguistic perspective of Arabic, I focus on how Arabic variation is influenced by speaker-related factors such as age, gender, class, education, and context. And with this, I present the common modules of diglossia, or 𝘎𝘪𝘓𝘕 اللغوية in Arabic. We study the model by Said Badawi in detail, Shubayr al-Hassan in detail. We study also other modules that were before that. I translate a good number of documents into the Arabic language to get them to know how the sociolinguistic landscape in Arabic works, and to what degree these varieties are used depending on age, gender, kind of differences between how males and females speak that language, also class, some languages that are spoken in some social contexts, and also about education. What about the language of highly educated and those who are not highly educated? And again, we are not presenting this from the standpoint of low versus high or prestige. We are presenting this from the standpoint of all these are legitimate forms of Arabic, and there is a good reason to integrate them into the study of language variation in the target language. The third is the discourse-based perspective. And here we get into the debate about the use of Stand-Arabic and the dialects in a good number of genres. So we talk about the use of these side by side in literature, also in political speeches, also in media, and also in religious discourses. How Arabic dialects and Eastern Arabic used side by side, and for what reasons, from authentic real-life situations. And again, if you focus on these A, B, and C, the linguistic, the sociolinguistic, and the discourse space, perhaps the strategic plan here is to raise the students' meta-variation or meta-linguistic knowledge about these variations in Arabic, about Arabic. What about the specific modules of the course? I'm here listing the key highlights. The first module here is about التنوع اللغوي كسمة من السمات الأساسية في كل اللغات الإنسانية. That's basically language variation as a feature across all languages. I translated a good number of texts that give them that this idea of variation is not really unique about Arabic. It does exist in other languages. But also we get into the uniqueness of Arabic in that, as we all know, variation exists all across the spectrum. The second module is about the Arabic language, focusing more on its history and walking them through where Arabic language is spoken, getting them into the sociolinguistic landscape, Arabic as a world language, Arabic as a global language, but we get them to know what are the different dialects of Arabic and where they are spoken on the map. And then I walk them that although we have so many dialects of Arabic, we continue to have some sort of paradigms, some sort of dialects that share some feature on a specific part of the map. The most common one is Levantine Arabic. This is kind of a paradigm or a mega family of some dialects that to some degree share some features. Module 3, we talk about the linguistic features of Eastern Arabic and the dialects or the regional dialects. And here we adopt some sort of a contrastive analysis framework where we summarize a lot of linguistic features in the basic modules of lexical, morphosyntactic, phonological, and also some pragmatic. Module 4 is ازدواجية لغوية, Arabic language diglossia in Arabic. I present all the models and then I critique the study. The study also some critiques for these models of Arabic language variation and diglossia. Module 5 is Arabic language variation in the different discourses. We study some literary samples, political speeches, and also some some texts from the media, because I think the media now is an interesting genre, and we see some sort of changing the dynamics between Standard Arabic and the dialects in the media. Last is we talk about Standard Arabic and the dialects in the educational and literary discourse in some detail, where we study what do literary critics and also education reformists believe about this issue. We talk about different things, including the context of North Africa, Egypt, and also some of the countries in the Levantine region. But I think I don't have much time to go over what specifically do we focus on in Arabic about any of these, but I will focus more here on number 5, which is Arabic language variation in the literary discourse, the media, and politics. So we analyze a political speech by Nasser, Jamal Abdel Nasser. It's quite common in discourse analysis where he was able to could mesh, I would say, in interesting ways to achieve some discourse purposes. So we analyze this already in Arabic, and we focus on the linguistic features that Jamal Abdel Nasser already used in the context of his political speech. We also analyze a short story by Naguib Mahfouz. He's a kind of a famous literary figure who got the Nobel Prize in 1986, I think. And he himself, that literary figure, used Standard Arabic and the dialects in strategic ways. So I ask the students to read the short story and also analyze the linguistic features and think more and more of the reasons why here the literary figure shifted or shifted to the use of Egyptian Arabic and not Standard Arabic. What kind of discourse purpose he might have had in mind when he shifted. We also focus on media. I think we take a couple of samples from a famous one on Al Jazeera called 𝘎𝘪𝘙𝘓𝘬𝘓𝘓𝑚𝑢�عَاكِس, where basically speakers who speak different dialects come into to debate different political and social phenomena. We also here get some lessons from an Arabic language class where the teacher is basically presenting a grammar point in Standard Arabic, but that teacher uses an Egyptian dialect or a Levantine dialect to present that point. The idea here is to walk the students to discover the discourse purposes when these code switches or shifts happen. So I think I don't have much time to go over all these one by one. Now, what do students particularly do in this course? Some sort of requirements. So I ask them to write 5 short essays where they go ahead and summarize and also critique each of these modules. And then that's kind of more or less of a summary. But then the midterm project adopts an analytic approach where I ask them to focus on a specific linguistic data coming from anything around them in the Arabic language use. It could be from a short story, could be from a song, could be from a movie, could be from an interview. And then I ask them to offer a linguistic analysis and the discourse purposes of these switches between Standard Arabic and the dialects. Students who speak different dialects are asked in particular to bring in their own dialects to this analysis. Those who studied abroad, I ask them also to focus on the dialect of choice that they already studied when they went abroad. Native speakers also come from a good number of Arab countries here on campus, particularly Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. I ask them to focus on their native dialects. And the idea is to open their eyes and minds to how these linguistic features compare and contrast in these dialects and the standards, but also to think of the discourse purposes. In the final paper, I ask them to write an argumentative essay about the use of Arabic broadly defined in a good number of discourses, try to adopt one perspective, why they think the dialects and or Standard Arabic should be the medium of instruction in this particular domain, and they write this in Standard Arabic. I take this course also to be a great opportunity to work with them on how to improve their competencies in Standard Arabic. So although they write about variation, as I just demonstrated using Standard Arabic, we change sometimes the course to be a workshop where we take some samples from the essays that they already wrote, and then we already conduct some sort of a learning by discovery where I highlight certain linguistic areas, and then we open the discussion about these. And here we ask them to add some notes, language and style that they already produced, and then how we can revisit some of these features given the linguistic features of Standard Arabic. There is some sort of a strict focus on stylistic and grammatical features because I still believe that they must be competent enough in Standard Arabic, and they understand this early on, and of course they are asked to resubmit their essays a couple of times. I take also this as a great opportunity to try to understand what features in Standard Arabic are still fluctuating. These are not entrenched or consolidated yet in the linguistic system, and which features are already entrenched or already consolidated in their linguistic system. As we all know, Arabic has a very complex linguistic system, and we have a good number of stylistic features that emerge late in the acquisition process. So working with them on these advanced features helps the instructor, me, to characterize these features and work with them to consolidate them. One of them, as we all know, is the use of the VS, that's the verb first sentences, because as we all know, students sometimes they avoid the use of the verb first sentences until a later stage. Perhaps this could be a good opportunity to make them aware of some of these features like الجملة الفعلية or the verb first sentences. Also, as I mentioned, they write in Standard Arabic about their dialects, and this is just a sample of what they write. And I make them aware of these features in an explicit way. As I mentioned, they are asked also to submit multiple drafts of the same essay after they visit these linguistic features. And of course, everything is typed in Arabic because that's where Arabic around us is used. Now, I want to just wrap up quickly. What do students think? Because we are running out of time. Students think this is, as some of them already said, I loved the way students from different Arab countries and backgrounds were employed as experts in their native dialects to draw a map of how various aspects of the language vary geographically. I also liked the way native and non-native students were sometimes paired with each other. I would like to see more of that. It taught me a lot about dialects, which is something that I didn't get to learn more in my regular Arabic coursework. I really enjoy linguistics, and that was a fun class. Sometimes when we talk about linguistics to students who are studying a foreign language, sometimes we take this to mean the very theoretical approach to linguistics, but perhaps a course like this is giving them linguistics in practice, how we can really study the linguistic system of a language in the context of language learning. Briefly, what did I learn? I did learn that bringing the metalinguistic knowledge about these languages do really matter in helping students to acquire a second or foreign language. I did also learn that we talk a lot about theoretical debates in the context of Arabic. I think now we should step aside all these theoretical debates and try to think of strategic, concrete initiatives that can bring the students' eyes and minds to the language variation of Arabic, that help them to discover the linguistic system of the language and know about their social linguistic landscape. Also, I found this course to be a common denominator, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, where native speakers of Arabic, second/foreign languages, and heritage can find a spot where they can bring in their assets, if these are native dialects, or a dialect that they studied earlier in their learning trajectory, or a dialect that they studied at home. The course is quite very popular here. I started offering it as a new course. It was a new development in 2018. Numbers varied between 17 to 27. So it has been one of the main courses for the students in the Arabic BA, and I teach it roughly every other year. I look forward to getting your questions when we get to the Q&A. Thank you. Now it's my great pleasure to announce our third speaker on this panel, Dr. Stephen Luft from the University of Pittsburgh. The title of his talk is Working for Program Retention in K-12 and College Level, Lessons from Japanese Program Advocacy. Before I give him the floor, Dr. Stephen Luft, he currently serves as the teaching associate professor and director of the undergraduate studies in the Department of East Asian Languages and Literatures at the University of Pittsburgh. He holds a BA in Japanese from Brigham Young University, an MA and a PhD degrees in Japanese language pedagogy from Ohio State. He has taught Japanese at high school, community college, and community levels, and he currently teaches courses in Japanese language and Japanese pragmatics. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Stephen Luft.
All right, thank you very much. Let me get my screen shared here. Okay, everybody can hear me okay? See everything okay? All right. So today I'll be talking about program retention, or in other words, how to keep a program, how to strengthen a program. And I'll be talking about both the K-12 and the university levels, a little bit more on the university side, but also K-12. This will be focused on Japanese, but I think that the things I talk about here will, for the most part, be largely applicable to other programs as well. So hopefully it'll be useful for everyone. Now, this talk is based largely on my own experience, but that experience has benefited greatly from the American Association of Teachers of Japanese. I'm currently serving as vice president there, and their advocacy committee, which has prepared resources and materials and has been a great benefit. I'll also be sharing some things that are from others, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share their expertise with everyone. So first, I'm going to talk about some issues that I've encountered that can affect the decision-making of administrators, and then I'll talk about what we as instructors can do to create programs that are more likely to be retained. First, I'll start out by pointing out that the majority of decisions made to cut programs or cancel programs or sections are usually related to financial concerns. If administrators feel that there's enough funding to retain a program, to pay for classrooms and teachers, then usually programs will be sticking around. First major issue that I'll talk about here, student enrollment. At the university level, this seems to be the largest concern. Generally makes sense because at the university level, students are paying for classes, excuse me, and if there's enough students, then there's enough funding coming into the university, and the class gets kept. At K through 12, this is also an issue, but not necessarily the most important issue. Other factors can lead to a program being canceled. Next is teacher availability. This can be a concern for both levels, but a little bit more of a concern for K through 12, where teaching licenses are required, and that can be a barrier to hiring a teacher. The current situation in Japanese language education in the United States is that more teachers are leaving the profession than are joining the profession. And that's particularly true at the K through 12 level. And this year we've already had one K through 12 program that was canceled because it was not possible to find a replacement teacher for a teacher that was retiring. Next is program integrity. This is the idea that decisions that undermine the quality of a program should be avoided. So in other words, ensuring that a program retains its quality is a reasonable use of resources. And then the last one is program reputation. A program that has a good reputation is less likely to be reduced or canceled than a program that doesn't have a good reputation. And to give one quick example of that, when I was teaching high school, the high school program, it was a Japanese immersion program in Portland, Oregon. The program I was in received an award from the Japanese government acknowledging that the contributions that it was making to Japanese language education in the United States. And the teacher that I was teaching with at that point commented to me, now our program's not going to be canceled. She recognized that that kind of thing affects the decision-making of the principal superintendent regarding whether or not a program gets canceled. So those are the major factors. I'll follow the same format in talking about addressing these issues by talking about each of the four that I just listed. And then at the end, I'll share some final thoughts. So first, student enrollment. Meeting students' interest is one way to address student enrollment. Students come to language classes wanting to learn the language, but usually that's not their primary interest. Usually it's a means to accomplishing something else, whether that's communicating with a boyfriend or girlfriend, doing business in another country, could be enjoying a cultural artifact like anime or manga, in the case of Japanese. And with language usually not being their primary interest, but a secondary interest, it can make a course more enjoyable and interesting for students to include content about their primary interest in the course. But it's something that needs to be done with balance. If it gets to the point that the language isn't receiving primary attention in the language class, that can undermine the integrity of the program and the reputation of the program. But when the cultural instruction is directly connected to the language instruction, that can be quite positive. Also, at the college level, it's possible to offer courses that are directly addressing students' interests. Carnegie Mellon University is right next door to the University of Pittsburgh, and they offer an anime class that's quite popular. And those type of classes can be gateway classes for students to enter a language program. Classes that combine language and culture are also possible. Amy Snyder Oda at the University of Washington runs an excellent class on learning Japanese through music. And it's a class that is open to any level of learner, and it's not the primary language class, but supplements the language class. If anyone's interested in more on that, happy to talk about it during the Q&A session. Next thing I'll talk about here is creating relevance. This is giving students reasons to study Japanese. One is through institutional requirements. Diana mentioned this in her presentation. At the university level, having a course fulfill general education requirements can help the program. Getting courses cross-listed as fulfilling requirements for other majors and minors is also an option. An even more powerful way of creating relevance for students is helping students to form relationships with members of the target culture. Students that have native speakers that are friends have reasons to continue learning the language. So a couple examples of this. I know of a high school teacher that would have all of her first-year students enter a pen pal program with speakers in Japan. And having someone that lived in Japan that they could become friends with created motivation to continue studying the language and to continue improving their language ability. Another teacher I know of that teaches high school arranged for Japanese students from Japan to do short-term homestays in the local community in the district that her high school was in. And I believe she advertised this program heavily to elementary school and junior high school students because those were the students that were going to be feeding directly into her program. And by having those students meet Japanese people and form relationships with them, it gave them reasons to study Japanese when they reached the high school level. Here at the University of Pittsburgh, we do a number of things to get our students connected with students of Japan. Most of these are focused with students that are studying abroad at our university. For a long time, we didn't have students studying abroad here from Japan at the University of Pittsburgh, except for a couple, but that's changed positively in recent years, and we've been able to utilize that, and it's become a strength of our program. We do things like inviting them to attend classes. We give our language students assignments that they're required to do with native speakers outside of class. We have a language partner program, so that gets them together. Also, our student organizations, and in particular, our Japanese language club, have done a lot of events with these students, inviting them to be there, to plan, and participate in events with them. So helping students form relationships with students in the target country gives them reasons to continue studying the language. It can strengthen a program. Next is increasing access. So most teachers nowadays have experience with virtual instruction. Shifting a course to a virtual platform can make it so that more students can participate. It can allow more students to enroll. Asynchronous online instruction is very attractive to students and professionals because it means that they can do it at their own time and at their own pace, and they can fit in with a work schedule. But asynchronous instruction is quite difficult to do with foreign language instruction because it's very difficult to do conversation practice if everything's asynchronous. So any decision to do that would need to be balanced with considerations of program integrity and program reputation. Offering courses that meet fewer times a week is also a way to increase access. That's an issue that Diana touched on as well. We've recently done this at the University of Pittsburgh by offering a Japanese class that meets only 3 times a week. And that has allowed a number of engineering students to enter our Japanese language program and study the language. Evening courses is another option. It's one that we honestly have not had a lot of success with. Professionals, it's easier for professionals to do it, but that seems to be the population that wants to do the evening courses, and we usually don't get enough professionals interested in the language to actually make that course work well. Advertising. This is probably one of the most obvious ways to attempt to increase student enrollments, and I'll talk about this one last under our student enrollment section. Our department recently conducted a survey of our students so that we can be better informed about how we advertise our classes to our students. We surveyed all students that were currently enrolled in our department's classes, which covers Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, and we asked 2 major questions. The first was how they found out that we offered languages, courses in East Asian languages and cultures. And the second was if they had any suggestions as to how we could let our students more effectively know about our programs. This was the response to the first question. Students selected from multiple options. And you can see there were 101 responses to this question. And the item that really stood out to us about this was that email was the lowest selected option out of all of these. Out of 101 respondents, only a single respondent selected email as an option for finding out about our classes. Now, that was a bit surprising to us, particularly since most of the way we advertise for our classes is through email. We send emails to our students, we send emails to other teachers to share with their students, we send emails to advisors to share with their students. So this was a bit surprising in light of the fact that that was probably the most regular way that we attempted to advertise classes to our students. For the second question, this was open-ended, and we did a thematical analysis by coding responses and then organizing those into themes. We ended up with 6 themes, and you can see those here, and you can see the type of responses we got under each of those. The numbers in parentheses are the numbers of responses, and for this one as well, only a single respondent mentioned email as a suggestion for how to let students know about our programs. So for us, this was the big takeaway, that we need to be doing things other than emailing our students about programs. We need to be getting more creative in terms of how we let them know about the classes that we offer. For other options here, aside from the obvious ones such as flyers, emails, bulletin boards, that kind of thing, student organizations can be an effective way to advertise programs. In that survey that we conducted, finding out about our programs from a friend, as you can see here, was the 3rd most common option. Now, with a student organization, you have a structure where students can make friends with people that are very likely to know about our programs. Cultural events are also an excellent way to raise awareness about a program. I think K through 12 has a bit of an advantage here. They usually know where all their students are coming from. There's a local area, there's specific schools that are feeding into the high school, for example, and they can do cultural events at elementary school levels and junior high school levels to raise awareness of their program. Involving parents for K through 12 instruction can also happen at that level, and that can be effective because it gets the parents on board with students' later decisions to study a less commonly taught language. Speech contests may be something that's uncommonly Japanese, but we do a speech contest every year for local high schools. And when the high school students from all of the local high schools that have Japanese programs come to our university for the speech contest, they get to meet our instructors and they get to hear about our program. And it gives us a chance to advertise with the population that is probably most likely to be taking our classes in the future. Okay, next I'll go on to teacher availability. For college level East Asian language teaching, if a program is in a situation where they need a teacher and they can't find a teacher, the ALEX Foundation is an excellent resource. ALEX is a foundation that provides East Asian language teachers to universities for a limited period of time, usually 2 to 3 years, and the teachers teach in exchange for tuition, room, and board waivers. So for the university, this is essentially using non-monetary resources. It's resources that the university has that are usually available that aren't money. So a university can get a East Asian language teacher, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, essentially without really having to use money to do it. For K through 12, I think this issue is much more difficult if you're missing a teacher because of the teaching credential issue. It is something that can be gotten around in certain situations. When I was hired to teach Japanese at high school, I did not have a teaching credential, and I was hired on an emergency licensure in Oregon, which gave me 3 years to complete my teaching credential and get on an actual real licensure. So there are situations where you can get around it, but it's pretty difficult. Okay, next is program integrity. Program integrity is an important factor in keeping high enrollments in upper levels. So students that feel like the program is doing what the program should, or in other words, they feel like they're learning the language and gaining language ability, are more likely to keep studying the language. The concept of program integrity is also useful in negotiating with administrators about lower enrolling sections. For example, if a university offers a major or a minor program, they've essentially tacitly committed to support that program. So if we have a Japanese minor and second-year Japanese gets canceled, and that's a requirement for the minor, then students who have declared that minor can no longer get the minor. What that means is, to the extent that one is able to enhance the program structure by adding a major or adding a minor or including one's courses in another minor, that strengthens the program and contributes towards retaining that program. At the University of Pittsburgh, our less commonly taught languages were able to get approval for a number of minors a few years ago. And they have since been able to successfully negotiate for retaining courses, upper-level courses that are required for the minor. And that includes language like Vietnamese, Turkish, Hungarian, Irish, Swedish, Hindi, a whole bunch of others. So that was really successful for our program. Next is program reputation. So the main point here is that when good news happens about your program, you should share it. You share it in faculty meetings, share it with student newspapers. If it's a big deal, share it with a real newspaper, get it posted to the university website, share it on social media, share it with whoever you can, and especially share it with the upper administration. Don't wait till they're thinking of downsizing the program or canceling the program for them to have an idea of how amazing it is. If you tell them along the way, they'll be less likely to think about canceling it or downsizing it when those questions arise. Now, one element of program reputation is teacher reputation. Jessica Haxey, she's a former president of the American Association of Teachers of Japanese, AATJ, also a former president of 𝚑𝘃𝘓, and she made this comment in an interview in 2021. The number one, what I see from the perspective of a supervisor is that the number one thing that determines whether a school keeps a program is the quality of the teacher. This is in the context of K-12 education, but teacher reputation is definitely a factor at the university level as well. Similar comment comes from Ann Jordan. She's a former AATJ president. She, in a recent webinar on advocacy, was encouraging teachers to keep a high profile. Part of that is sharing your successes, which I just mentioned. But another part of that is building relationships with decision makers. The more that administrative people who are going to be deciding what sections get kept and what sections get cut, the more they know you and of you, the stronger your reputation becomes. Small things can help there, like speaking up in meetings. At the university level, contributing on university committees can help you to build relationships with administrators and other decision makers. That improves your program's reputation. Another way of keeping a high profile is participating in teacher organizations. Those can happen at the national and the state level, local level. There's different levels of organizations. But if you were to reach out to an organization and say that you wanted to help out, they're usually looking for volunteers. It wouldn't be too long before they found something for you to do. And it may seem a little bit counterintuitive that you can be supported by a national or local organization by supporting that organization. But participating in those organizations helps you to make a case that you are a leader in the field, and that helps to build your reputation. Student reputation also contributes towards the program reputation. Any commendation students get, awards, fellowships, scholarships, particularly at the national level. With less commonly taught languages, those can be easier to get at the national level because the government's usually interested in less commonly taught languages. All those things help the program's reputation. Honor society memberships are usually an easy one. You simply send an organization the names of your students and a small fee, and those students become members of the Honor Society, and that's information that you can publish about your program. Another important thing about student reputation is alumni. Keeping track of alumni is an excellent idea, particularly those who have gone on to successful careers, and particularly those that have successful careers that use the target language. Study abroad also helps program reputation. Having a study abroad program can help. There's usually lots of organizations out there, companies and other places that can help with that. So study abroad also enhances programs' reputation. Most students want an abroad experience. Historical background can also enhance programs' reputation. How long the program has been running, when it was started, who started it, that all is part of the historical background, and that can all be part of the program's reputation. For example, here we have a summer language program, intensive language learning, that's been going for over 30 years, and that's something that we regularly refer to when we're advertising that program and talking to administration about the program. One last comment on program reputation. At AATJ, we are currently creating a program award. I don't think there's a lot of program awards out there. Teacher awards are pretty common, but I don't think there's a lot of program awards. But we're creating a program award. It's called the Growing Program Award. And the idea is that this is going to be given to high-quality programs that are small in size. One reason being because those programs are the most likely to be canceled. And this type of recognition can help a program to not be canceled. It can improve its reputation. Also, by recognizing the program rather than the teacher, we're hoping that this is something that is going to stay when a teacher retires. If it's a teacher award and the teacher retires, then that's no longer associated with the program. But a program award, we're hoping will stay with the program and be a more permanent fixture. So just a couple of final thoughts here. One, ongoing data collection is important. You want to keep track of good things as they're happening so that if you're in a situation where you need to advocate, you're not having to figure out what all the information is that you need to do that. Second, if you find yourself in a position to hire someone new for your program, finding someone that can do things to enhance the program's reputation can be a big help. We recently hired a teacher that's very savvy with social media, and he's been doing great things to enhance our social media profile, and that's been great for our program. National and local organizations can provide support for your program if you need help. AATJ has an advocacy committee that's specifically dedicated to this. They provide all kinds of resources for teachers for advocating for Japanese language instruction, but they'll also consult with programs that are having trouble. They'll provide advice. They'll also provide support. They can provide letters of support from the organization and other things. Also, government funding is a possibility for support. In the case with less commonly taught languages, it's often that governments want to support them. They have their own interest in having these languages taught. The U.S. government, for example, Foreign Language Area Studies, that's a program that can provide support. For the Japanese side, the Japan Foundation, that's an organization affiliated with the Japanese government that provides funding and support for Japanese language instruction. Here's a last thought. I want to come back to this image. So this is an AI generated image. I had an AI create an image that was an advertisement for a Japanese class, and this is what it came up with me. The thing that I want to point out about this is that what looks like Japanese is not Japanese. That is complete gibberish. The AI clearly doesn't know what Japanese is. As I was putting this presentation together and saw this image, I thought there might be a connection there. It seems sometimes that, as we're trying to talk to administrators about our programs, it can seem that they just don't get what we're trying to do here. But what we do is so important. Helping people from different cultures to successfully communicate with each other is hugely important in the world. Lack of communication is just a huge issue, and what we do is important. And it's my hope that this presentation will help everybody to be able to effectively advocate for their program so that we can keep doing the important work they're doing. So thank you very much. Happy to take questions when the time comes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luft. I appreciate your presentation and your insights about Japanese. Our last presentation on this panel is by Dr. Hwang from Stony Brook University. Title of her talk is Fostering Engagement and Retention in East Asian Language Programs Through Intercultural Reflective Teaching. Dr. Hwang is an assistant professor and director of the Asian languages at Stony Brook University. Her research focuses on intercultural communication in the context of language teaching and learning, Korean language pedagogy, Korean linguistics, and speech production and perception. Her scholarly work has been published in prominent journals, such as Language and Speech, Foreign Language Annals, Journal of Memory and Language, and finally, Bilingualism, Language, and Cognition. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hwang.
I'm not sure if I'm muted or unmuted. Can you hear me?
You're good. We hear you and we see the slides. All good.
Oh, okay, good. Hi, everyone. Let me actually make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Azaz. Hi, everyone. My name is Ji-won Hwang. It's my pleasure to be here today. So I'll talk about my experience with creating an intercultural engagement project in collaboration with my colleagues here at Stony Brook University. Just let me give you a little background of where I am. So Stony Brook University is located in Long Island. It's one of the SUNY institutions, the State University of New York, and it's a large public research university. Since it's very close to New York City, it's a diverse institution, particularly with a high number of Asian students. So for a long time, Asian students were the second largest group, about 20% 20 years ago, and then 30% 10 years ago. And now, believe it or not, this year, it's actually the largest group on campus. I'm just talking about the undergrad students. It's partly because we now have more international students from Asian countries like China, Korea, Japan, which is actually relevant to our project that we'll be presenting today. But overall, it has become more and more diverse over the last 2 decades. And now about 17% is Hispanic and Latinx students and 10% African-American students. So in my department of Asian and Asian American Studies, we offer these 5 languages. And in terms of the size of each language programs, we currently offer the most sections for Japanese and then Chinese and Korean. And for Hindi and Sanskrit, we have no full-time instructors yet, so the number of sections is kind of minimal, maybe 1 or 2 each semester. So I'll focus on these East Asian languages in my presentation today. So the important question, did the programs grow? Do we now have more enrollments? I mean, we really want to know about how that happened, right? So actually, yes, 4 years ago in 2020 fall semester, we had 649 enrollments in the 3 language courses. In this semester, we have 745. So we are quite happy to see this number. And the next question is how did the programs grow? I wish I could say that these 3 language programs grew in our department because of X, Y, and Z that we did. However, the reality is that there are so many factors that play influencing recruitments and retention, as the previous presentations today have all addressed, right? So we have all different levels, the factors at all different levels, at the student level, the program level, the instructional factors, and the institutional level, even at the societal level. So we have these many factors, and all these factors, whether they're institutional, instructional, or student related, they all play a role in language programs for recruitment and retention. So some of these factors could contribute positively, while others may present challenges or a negative impact at the same time. So no matter how much effort you put into one area, other factors may actually cancel it out. So it is quite complex. It's not always as simple as saying that, oh, we grow our programs by doing X, Y, and Z, in my experience. So today, while we cannot really examine all of the factors and how we try to make them work for our programs today, we can focus on the efforts made at the instructional level using a research-based approach to better understand who our students are and what their needs are, so that we can respond to their needs and enhance both the learning experience and outcomes, which I believe will eventually work as a positive factor for recruitment and retention. I'm not claiming that this effort that I'll be presenting today was definitely the key factor behind the enrollment growth in our programs, but I do believe that it has played a positive role in conjunction with other many factors. So what did we do? In our project, we first conducted focus group interviews with students from the 3 language programs to learn about their language learning experiences. And based on that, we followed up with a survey for 2 years at the end of spring semesters in each year, where over 60% of our students participated. So about 700 responses we were able to collect. I have a lot of information about their language learning experiences. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stand up because the light automatically turns on. I'm in my office right now because I had outage at home. Okay, sorry, going back to the presentation. So today I will just focus on the motivations and challenges. So the motivations, all three language groups showed similar motivation patterns, although there were some variations. So some students were genuinely interested in learning languages for personal reasons, for personal growth or personal interest, and had a strong desire to communicate directly with the target language culture using the target language. So I think these results are very well aligned with the survey findings that Dr. Murphy presented today. Other students were motivated by a desire to become culturally and linguistically global citizens. Particularly for Chinese learners, there was a strong motivation to communicate better with their family members. And this is because the Chinese group had the largest number of heritage learners. On the other hand, Japanese and Korean learners are more motivated to learn the language to understand the media or the anime or K-pop a little better. Interestingly, overall, students were far less motivated by instrumental reasons, such as like achieving a better GPA or enhancing career projects. And I think this is also a quite similar result that Dr. Murphy shared today in her survey results. Now the challenges, once again, learners exhibited similar patterns, but this time the various types of challenges were more evenly distributed. So let's get to them in more detail. So we all know that language learning is not only about the acquisition of the language, it's also a means of socialization and a process of identity construction. So learning is influenced by different levels of social cultural context, and we analyze all these challenges that our students shared with us in terms of these different levels. So first, at the micro level of social activity, we primarily observe students' communicative needs. Students were afraid of experiencing a linguistic breakdown. They're really nervous of them. And they found it most difficult to sustain a conversation in the target language. And they also expressed a desire to learn how to maintain real, natural, and authentic interactions within the target language culture. And at the meso level, like the situational context where students learning takes place, whether at home or classrooms, TA office hours, surprisingly, our students generally found a lack of opportunities to meaningfully use the target language, especially non-heritage learners. I mean, heritage learners have their home where they could use the language constantly. So, I mean, this was despite the large number of international students from China and Korea especially, and this indicates that availability of these resources alone does not necessarily lead to engagement. So, and even when these kind of opportunities were provided, because we had TAs from who speak all these target languages as their native languages, students found it kind of difficult to meaningfully engage with them because they don't know what to talk about with them, and most of the time the TAs were there just to help with grammar or vocab, correcting their mistakes. And students were concerned about being criticized for their proficiency levels, and they really wanted a safe space where they could not be judged by others. So it was very clear to us that students need safe yet structured social space where they could kind of experiment with the language that they are learning. And students also encountered, at the macro level, students also encountered like negative perceptions about learning Asian languages. For instance, there's some stigma with these languages, or some beliefs that these uncommonly taught languages may be nice add-ons, but may not be very important. And some of our students were afraid of speaking Asian languages in public due to the fear of racist remarks, which I think some of our students actually experienced. Heritage learners in particular, they express the desire to make meaningful connections to their identity, despite all these negative perceptions of those languages or the people who use these languages. So from this, we learned that not only linguistic and communicative needs, but also social linguistic and discourse perspectives need to be considered and taught through authentic socialization opportunities. So to achieve this goal, we adopted an intercultural-oriented teaching pedagogy and try to leverage the diverse student body on campus as a valuable resource. So just to briefly talk about what intercultural language teaching is, traditionally in language education, the teaching of culture has been presented as something additional. It's just a cultural component, something secondary. But in this approach, the goal of language education was just to acquire language skills and cultural knowledge without much influence on the learner's native language and cultural identity. So like the learner would just stay in their first language world, external to the target language culture. Or to become a member, to be accepted as a member of the target language community, speaking like all target language users and following the same cultural norms. And within these approaches, it's really not intended that students would engage with culture and language in a way that their own identities, values, or life worlds can be challenged and transformed. But in the interculturally oriented view on language teaching, through these intercultural interactions and communication, learners constantly move between their linguistic and cultural worlds and that of the users of the target language. So in this process, learners learn to decenter from their own social, linguistic, and cultural world and eventually come to a different understanding of themselves and others. And there is no final state for them. It's the process. The language learning stuff is viewed as the process. So the objective in this view is not only what the learners want to be able to do in the language, but also who they want to become through the language that they are learning. So we really wanted to keep in mind that the teaching should focus on the learner rather than on the language itself. And we really wanted to consider our students' growth and empowerment as individuals through specific language learning activities. So we came up with 7 principles that kind of guided us in creating the activities and materials in our intercultural engagement project. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to summarize this, we wanted to focus on students' ability to jointly construct discourse using linguistic and also interactional resources and address this missed opportunity with existing international students on campus for better and more collaborative engagement, where students could kind of tune to each other, then to move to the target. And in this process, we wanted our students to develop social, linguistic, and discourse perspectives and really understand that language learning goes far beyond just vocab and grammar and communication. So it was essential for us to consider our language learners not only as participant user of the target language, but also as an analyzer, developing their meta-awareness of their learning process. So in this intercultural engagement project that we developed, we had 3 components: pair of activities, TA time, and discussion forum. And each of these activities had its own purpose and goal, but collectively, they all aim to promote authentic, critical, and social intercultural engagement. This project was actually designed to be out-of-class tasks because we didn't want to interrupt our regular curriculum. And all courses, all 3 language courses adopted the same components, while specific materials and activities for each component were aligned with the topics of each language course. And students were invited to write about their experiences with this project throughout the semester. And for the interest of time, I will just briefly go over sample activities in Korean, but I could talk more about activities for other languages during the breakout session or during the Q&A. So first, the pair of activity. So basically, students were paired up together and they observed authentic materials that featured natural talking interactions, embedding a lot of cultural significance in there. And they analyzed how the speakers in the interactions interact together, not just in the words and language, but in the way they use all the resources available to them. And they analyzed all these, similar and different interactional features between their language and what they are observing. And this was meant to be a space for students kind of make trial and error. So when they apply these newly learned features, they actually chose to use them in the way that they want to. We did not really force them to reach a certain criteria. So that's basically what they did. I have an example, but I don't think I will have enough time to go over that. But basically, this is a clip from a reality show in Korea, and a small group of young people introducing themselves for the first time. Linguistically speaking, it was pretty simple because they only share their name, age, and maybe occupation. So it was pretty easy. But in terms of the richness, I mean, the interactional features that we were able to observe, it was so rich. The way they gaze to each other, the way they use their bodies, the way they use reactive tokens, the way they take turns, the timing of turn taking. This was a fun activity for a lot of students. So they were given all these questions to analyze how they take turns, just examples of these. And then at the end, they had to apply this in their own conversations. And since we don't have time, I'm not going to play this, but it was really fun to watch how students try to be really responsive and interactive. So we did all this in 3 language programs. By the way, the samples that I'm sharing right now is only for the first semester language courses, because I think if we do this when they come to our programs first, then it would be better for it would be more effective for us to keep them in our programs. So, the pair of activity had like sequencing practice, how to use responsive tokens, how to make polite requests, how to signal uncertainty, how to politely refuse all these functions. Now the TA time. So, because since our students already experienced the pair of activities, they were kind of equipped with these resources, and we really wanted them to interact in the target language in real life in a small group of TA and peer students. As I mentioned before, even though we already had some TAs working with students, their office hours were mainly for accuracy check or preparation for tests. So we really wanted to turn this opportunity to something fun, meaningful, and interactive. So students were given some sort of a communicative goal with certain topics, and each language program has different list of topics, which I can share later. And when they were interacting together, the general instructions to the students was that they could use any languages actually, and they could use verbal or non-verbal communication tools. And they really were encouraged to focus on negotiating and cooperating together to achieve the communicative goals that were given to them. Again, they were reminded that this is a safe place. They can just have fun and play together with the language. And since this activity also involved TAs, we really needed to train them as well. So we shared our teaching goals in this project with them and instructed them to employ strategies that any speakers or bilingual speakers would use in real life, like repeating, rephrasing, clarifying, guessing, writing, drawing, using gestures, facial expressions, and occasional English words as well. So the goal here is really to socialize in target language rather than teaching for them. After their interactions, students were able to reflect on the way they interacted, and students have noticed that they were really pointing to things using their gestures and fingers, and they realized that they use all the available semiotic resources to have real interactions. They really like to have real non-scripted conversations, even though they may not be perceived as perfect conversations, and they felt that it really helped them build connections with peers. And some examples of the TA time activities. Again, we developed all this in all 3 language programs. Now, the discussion forum. I personally think this was a very important activity, and it could actually is very relevant to what Dr. Azaz shared today. So the discussion forum was designed to provide an alternative space for students to critically reflect on recurring issues such as language attitudes, language variation, multilingualism, and ideologies, and really to raise social linguistic awareness and intercultural competence. So first, students observed authentic multimodal materials and analyzed the critical instances within these materials, and they connect to the topic by sharing their own life experiences. Since our students are situated in a very diverse and multilingual, multicultural context on our campus, we had full of stories about their experiences relating to the instances that we see in the materials. And they interacted with their peers by leaving comments, asynchronous comments, and they also built an open and reflective community through this activities beyond the language classrooms. For example, you know, all 3 languages had a unit addressing the issues surrounding the "where are you from" question. You know, this question is typically introduced early in the semester for the first semester language classes, and many textbooks just present the linguistic elements of this question and just include it in the sample dialogues. And they often overlook the cultural and intercultural significance of this question. So students discussed on when, where, to whom, and how to ask these questions, and how to respond or how to accept the responses to this question from another person without any assumptions. Here's another example, which I'm just going to skip, but this is about, this was really fun activity too. You know, when you have assumptions about somebody, someone's name based on your own cultural norms, that could create misunderstandings, and students watch this video. This was again a reality show, and students analyzed them, related them to their own lives, and then interacted through you know, by leaving comments to each other. I'm just going to skip this. So how did the students react to this project? I think pretty positively. I have some quotes from students. I don't think I can go through all of them, but just to highlight a few. Many students expressed that by observing and analyzing authentic conversations in the pair of activities, they understood how conversation works in real life, and even in their own language, they have become much more aware of what people do and what they do, and they were able to develop more natural conversation skills applicable to day-to-day interactions. Many students from these all 3 courses found the TA time to be an effective place to engage in authentic conversations. And some students reported that these experiences heightened their curiosity towards others. And then this was a fascinating comment that I thought. And TAs also reported that they enjoyed in connecting with peer language learners. And they also report that they kind of got this sense of belonging as participants of the learner community rather than just helpers. And then typically all these international students sometimes feel like kind of alienated on campus, and then they just kind of clustered together, not interacting with the local students. And then I think this was a really great opportunity for them. Instructors were also very happy to see what happens during the TA time and how these TA time served as a catalyst for collaborative learning in other places of their courses. Discussion forum also helped them to learn how to handle intercultural situations and gain a better understanding of multiple perspectives. So this was a collaborative effort. 8 full-time faculty. This was actually a funded project by U.S. Department of Education. So 8 full-time faculty members participated in this, in creating all these activities together. We would still have continuing efforts with more instructors involving into this project. the project itself ended, but we're trying to sustain these activities in our language programs. We are trying to leverage existing resources, not just international students, and we're trying to look for opportunities outside of our campus to find opportunities with local speakers who use Chinese, Korean, or Japanese. And I'm hoping that this effort that we had is kind of helping us to transit from performance-based pedagogies to more interculturally reflected pedagogies. So I would like to end this presentation with a quote from a student. I think I've definitely become more open-minded after taking this course and more invested in others. This class has led me to grow as a person, learning to be more open and vulnerable, but also more confident and grounded. So I have had this, lingering question for a long time as a language instructor, especially with increased online language lessons and resources with high quality these days. I keep asking myself, what experience can we offer to the learners that the YouTube, for example, YouTube language lessons cannot in our language classroom? So I think through this collaborative project, which would not have been possible by myself, I think I partially answered the question, and I hope that this new direction in language teaching can lead to improved student recruitment and retention as well. And some of these aspects of our project can be utilized in your language programs too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hwang. Before we go to the breakout rooms, I put here in the chat the announcement for our last panel for tomorrow. I think it's going to be exciting in so many ways. And it's going to be about technologies and AI in the pedagogy of less commonly taught languages. We did our best to make it representative enough of different insights, teaching a good number of things, including pragmatics. And we look forward to seeing all of you over there.